Hello, I'm Beck. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be drawing a D&D character based on the roll of the dice.
Let's bring out the Tower of Destiny!
Now we have a Genasi NPC, and I decided to go with a water Genasi, but first, let's discuss what an NPC is. Anyone who's familiar with video games in particular will know that it stands for non-playable character. In D&D, usually NPCs are played by the DM, so technically they are playable characters, they're just not playable by the players. Although I have encountered some games where if the players want to bring a certain number of NPCs with them in a party, so they've sort of adopted a bunch of NPCs in their adventures, the DM, instead of having to play all of these characters all the time, will basically farm them out to certain players. So they'll say, well, you're the one who wants to bring this little girl with you, so for the sake of combat and things like that, she will go on your turn, or you are now responsible for playing part of her role or something like that. It's really up to the DM to decide, because often these characters can be very useful in terms of relaying information. So in particular, if you have a character who's going along with you in a supervisory capacity, or someone who might actually be a bad guy, then obviously you're not going to have your players play that character. But if it's someone who maybe they've been with the party long enough that everyone in the party kind of knows what they're about, and there isn't really much that the DM needs them to do, it's really just the players like having that character around, then sometimes the DM has them play that. But I digress. What is a water Genasi? All Genasi are descendants of sort of genies. They are different elemental genies, I guess you'd say. So water Genasi descend from Marids, which are aquatic genies from the elemental plane of water. Because of this, water Genasi are perfectly suited to life underwater and carry the power of waves inside themselves. Doesn't really elaborate on what that means, except in the water Genasi traits you have one called Call to the Wave, which is you know the acid splash cantrip, and at the third level you can cast Create or Destroy water spell. At 5th level you also learn Water Walk under Call to the Wave, so those are pretty good spells. In a legacy version, Call to the Wave allows you to learn the Shape Water cantrip, which is the spell that I'm having my character currently perform. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to say that she knows both of these cantrips because she's really cool. Some of the other traits that this water Genasi would have are amphibious. You can breathe air and water. I don't know why I struggled to say the word amphibious, but there you go. Acid resistance. She has resistance to acid damage. And just your standard sort of dark vision. I feel like it's standard for everyone. Although I've noticed that some dark vision expands longer than others. So we have one that's 60 feet here. Sometimes it's only 30 feet. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. It could be 60 feet for everyone. Anyway, the official description of water Genasi also states that their skin is often shades of blue or green, and sometimes a blend of the two. If they have human skin tone, there is a glistening texture that catches the light, like water droplets or nearly invisible fish scales. And their hair can resemble seaweed, waving as if in a current, or it can be like water itself. So I went for the latter in this particular drawing, and I have her sort of shaping water around a mermaid, because one of my favorite things about drawing NPCs is that you get to really think about the world that in D&D, there's so many characters that aren't adventurers who have magic, but they use that magic to do just sort of everyday, you might say mundane things in the context of this world. And in a lot of ways, I find that more exciting because obviously it's great to have magic and it's great to save the world with magic, but it's more the sort of the everyday magic appeals to me so much of if you could control water and you could shape it into any shape that you like and that sort of thing, what kind of industry would be born from that? What would you be able to do to make money using this particular skill? So that's what I've sort of focused in on here for the NPC. She's a little bit of I have her like she's working in some sort of corporate company, and she's part of the facilitators who help mer people I was going to say walk on land, but that move themselves around when they are on land and stay comfortable by having their scales stay wet, and probably, even though mermaids have noses and mouths that would indicate, like particularly noses would indicate that they can breathe air, they mostly stay underwater and they have gills. So I would assume it's more comfortable for them to be breathing water. So I sort of drew it in such a way that they can breathe water or they can breathe air, and their scales get to stay wet, but they're still experiencing land without a big bubble on their head or anything like that. So yeah. Having a look at her abilities, we can see that she is either average or above average in every category. So she's had a pretty decent, well-rounded training, education, whatever you want to call it. I'll start at the top and work my way down. So we've got the +2 to strength, which means she's quite sturdy and strong for a lady of her size. What should we name her? I think Martha. Her name's Martha. Okay, so Martha is quite strong, deceptively so, I think. Probably because she would be lifting mermaids into these wheelchairs from lakes and oceans and things like that. I don't think she necessarily has a lot of help on the job. I think it's one of those kinds where there's supposed to be like 3 people there at any given time, but because of budget cuts, it's just her. So now she has to do all of the steps, which would be getting the mermaids from the water into the chair. It would be the maintenance of the chair, which is where your dexterity comes in. Dexterity can be used to be sneaky, but it can also be used to make or dismantle traps. And I think instead of traps, she is more conscious of whether this wheelchair is functioning properly. So she does the checks to make sure everything's safe. If any screws are loose or if anything needs to be mended, she sees to that herself, and that's how she's gotten this +2 dexterity. Her constitution is +1, which I would imagine means she's worked a few double shifts or maybe even triple shifts, and so she's developed that constitution that allows you to function even when you're quite tired and weary. Her +0 intelligence would probably come from just that average level of intelligence that you get when you went through school. You know all the information you're supposed to have learned to have a job, but then you really just over study. So she's not really interested in going to the library and learning things from books and studying manuals and all of that stuff. She's interested in working with her hands, so she's not really following up on more intelligence level stuff. But she is very much into the wisdom side of things. So using the intellect that she has and applying it to the real world, into practical situations, and doing things a little bit more logically rather than maybe to the letter of what the corporate policy guide dictates. She is good at reading people. She can tell if someone is feeling uncomfortable or if they're lying to her or if they're maybe trying to swindle her in some way. And yeah, that's the +2 wisdom and charisma. She is just a pleasant person to be around. She likes to interact with her customers and she likes to make sure everyone's having a good time. So probably she gets on well with her direct employer as well, whether that's just a manager of the store. I don't know that she would interact with the big honchos, the CEOs of this company that she works for, but she's definitely a pleasant person to be around. So if you are DMing a game and you want to incorporate this character into your game, an obvious scenario would be to have your players needing to go underwater for a long period of time, where they need to employ the services of someone who works in a company that helps mermaids to function on land and also helps non-aquatic creatures to function underwater. So I think in addition to the service you see her providing here, she can also provide humanoid figures with the sort of bubble head charm that you see in Harry Potter, and perhaps there is an apparatus that is provided to move around underwater that's a little bit more convenient for your players to get around. And as always in D&D, even though this is a pleasant character who your players have absolutely no reason to fight, in the event that they do get into a fight with her, she does have good stats and she does have her spells, and even though she doesn't have a class, I like to use that as an excuse to just like choose random like abilities and spells that they don't know what she can do because she hasn't taken a formal class. So maybe like she knows her water shaping cantrip, she knows her create and destroy water, she knows acid splash. Those are things she has with her race. But because she doesn't have a class, because she's an NPC, you can really just literally roll a dice to determine what kind of other spells she might know. Maybe she's got a little bit of barbarian fighting in her. Maybe she has an array of weapons that she likes to use. Or maybe you'd like her to be more as you would expect. So she doesn't carry weapons. She's an employee at a store, and defeating her would be very, very easy. But maybe this employee from a store is good friends with a water elemental. So sure, they can kill this poor store employee who wanted nothing more to do her job and get paid and go home. But if they do, they will find their entrance into the water a little bit more difficult because a water elemental is no joke. They've got 114 hit points, their armor class is 14. I'll put the stats up on the board, but it's one of those things where just because you've done an easy fight where like I didn't give her a level, so I don't really know what her hit points would be. Probably I would just assign them to be the same number of hit points that's the average of the players in the group. But they might destroy her and then realize that they done derped up by destroying this poor innocent victim. Now, if you were going to play this character, like you've sort of planned it out to be an NPC, but then you want to use this character as a player in a game, not as a DM, it's as simple as choosing a class for her. Now, obviously, I usually get my classes from just rolling a dice, but normal people who play the game normally will choose a class based on what they want to actually do. And I think if I was choosing a class for this one, I would go with Druid and maybe lean into the whole water ocean thing and have her be like the character I did last time, have her be a Druid circle of land in the coast area. So a Druid of the coast to shorten it. And that would give her a legitimate reason to have control water. Oh, shape water is the one I was thinking of, but there's a spell at 7th level called Control Water as well. But then she already gets water breathing and stuff, so maybe you would want to have her learn a different one where there's no double ups of your special abilities. Like if you had her be a Druid of the Underdark, she can do webs and gaseous forms and things like that. Something to think about. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, or hit the like if you're already subscribed, or do both if you're feeling crazy. and I will catch you next time. Okay, bye.